Echoes of madness, the abandoned asylum. The wind howled through the desolate trees as I stood at the entrance of the abandoned insane asylum. The decrepit building loomed before me, its windows shattered, its walls covered in ivy, and its very presence sending shivers down my spine. It had been years since anyone had set foot in this place, and I had heard the stories of madness, suffering, and unspeakable horrors that had taken place within those grim walls. I had always been drawn to the macabre, to the unknown, and this place was the embodiment of both. My heart raced as I took a step forward, the crunch of broken glass beneath my feet echoing eerily in the silence. I knew I shouldn't be here, but the allure of the asylum was too strong to resist. The main entrance creaked open with a mournful groan, as if the building itself were welcoming me. My flashlight cast eerie shadows on the walls as I cautiously stepped inside. The air was heavy with a musty, damp odor that clung to my clothes and seemed to seep into my very soul. The asylum was like a maze, with long, dimly lit hallways branching off in every direction. As I explored deeper into the asylum, I couldn't help but imagine the tormented souls that had once inhabited these hulls. Patients who had been abandoned by society, left to rot in this grim institution. The thought sent shivers down my spine. I came upon a room with a broken door that hung on its hinges. Inside, I found a single rusted bed frame, its mattress long gone. The walls were covered in strange symbols and messages scrawled in what looked like blood. It was a chilling sight, and I quickly backed out of the room, my heart pounding. Continuing my exploration, I descended into the basement. The air grew colder, and the darkness seemed to press in on me from all sides. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the damp, decaying walls. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the darkness, a soft, mournful moan that sent a chill down my spine. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hand. It couldn't be real, I told myself. It was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then I heard it again, louder this time, and I knew I wasn't alone in the asylum. I turned and fled, scrambling up the stairs and back into the main hallway. My heart was pounding in my chest as I ran, my footsteps echoing in the empty building. I had to get out of there, I thought. I had seen enough, felt enough. But as I reached the main entrance, I found the heavy doors had swung shut, trapping me inside. Panic surged through me as I frantically pushed and pulled at the doors, but they wouldn't budge. I was trapped, alone in this nightmarish place. The moans grew louder, closer, and I could hear whispers in the shadows, voices filled with pain and despair. My flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in complete darkness. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, praying for a signal. When I finally managed to turn it on, the pale glow of the screen illuminated the hallway, revealing figures in tattered, blood-stained clothing standing at the end of the corridor. Their eyes were empty, soulless, and they began to shuffle towards me, their moans growing louder and more agonized. I screamed and turned to run, but the asylum had become a labyrinth, twisting and shifting around me. The walls seemed to close in, the ceiling lowering, and the floors rising. I was trapped, disoriented, and the ghostly figures closed in, their icy hands reaching out to touch me. I stumbled and fell to the ground, surrounded by the tormented spirits of the asylum's dark past. They moaned and whispered, their voices a cacophony of suffering. I couldn't escape, and I knew that I would join them, condemned to wander these haunted halls for all eternity. As their cold hands closed in on me, I closed my eyes and let out a final blood-curdling scream. The asylum had claimed me, just as it had claimed all those who had suffered within its walls, and now I would become a part of its never-ending nightmare. The Blackthorn Insane Asylum. The Blackthorn Asylum stood before us, its imposing presence silhouetted against the pale moonlight. We, a team of seasoned paranormal investigators, had long heard of the supernatural occurrences that plagued this forsaken place. Tonight, we decided to confront the darkness that shrouded it. The asylum, a relic of despair and suffering, had been abandoned for decades. As we approached its decaying gates, an eerie sense of foreboding washed over us. It was as if the very atmosphere around the asylum had thickened with malevolence. With determination and our trusty equipment, we ventured into the asylum, our footsteps echoing ominously through the desolate halls. We divided into pairs, each armored with flashlights, delving into the inky darkness in search of any paranormal activity. Sarah, my partner, and I had just begun our investigation when an unsettling sensation swept over us. The air grew colder, and a shiver ran down my spine. I checked my phone, expecting to find only darkness, but to our astonishment, a message had appeared on the screen. "Do you seek answers?" it read, the words materializing out of thin air. I showed it to Sarah, her eyes wide with disbelief. There was no logical explanation for this message. We had no cell reception within the asylum. We cautiously typed a response, asking who or what was communicating with us. Almost instantly, another message appeared, filled with cryptic warnings and personal details about our lives, things we had never shared with anyone. It was as if the entity knew our deepest fears and darkest secrets. Fear gripped us as we continued to communicate with this enigmatic force. It taunted us, revealing information about our pasts and promising to expose our darkest secrets to the world if we didn't leave the asylum immediately. Panic set in, and we made a hasty retreat toward the entrance, but the asylum seemed to shift and change around us, trapping us in its nightmarish grasp. Meanwhile, the other members of our team experienced similar torment. The entity whispered threats and insidious truths into their phones, each message pushing them further into a state of hysteria. Our group unraveled, the once cohesive team dissolving into chaos. As we stumbled through the asylum's labyrinthine corridors, the entity seemed to feed on our terror. It projected horrifying visions into our minds, making us question our sanity. We witnessed the tortured souls of the asylum's former patients, their gaunt faces contorted in agony. The walls themselves appeared to ooze malevolent energy, and the air grew thick with despair. Desperation drove us to the brink of madness. We realized that the entity had us in its clutches, and there was no escape. It mocked us, promising eternal suffering and torment. Our phones buzzed incessantly with its sinister messages, each one more disturbing than the last. In a final act of desperation, we gathered in the asylum's central hall, our flashlights flickering with dread. We pleaded with the entity to release us, to spare us from its torment. In response, the very walls of the asylum seemed to close in around us, and a deafening cacophony of screams filled the air. With trembling hands, I sent a message to the entity begging for mercy. The response came swiftly, a chilling declaration of our fate. "You cannot escape the darkness that dwells within. You are forever bound to the Blackthorn Asylum." Our phones buzzed once more, each message intensifying our fear. "Your suffering nourishes me. The secrets you hide will consume you. I am the embodiment of your deepest nightmares." The floor beneath us gave way, and we plummeted into a seemingly endless abyss, our screams echoing into the void. In that moment, we became a part of the asylum's dark history, destined to roam its haunted halls for eternity, tormented by the malevolent force that had ensnared our souls. The Blackthorn Asylum had claimed us, and our once ordinary investigation had become a descent into a nightmare from which there was no escape. Our team, forever lost to the darkness, had become just another chapter in the asylum's twisted, supernatural legacy. Whispers in the dark, the secrets of St. Anne's Asylum. The rain fell in a relentless cold downpour as I stood before the looming gates of St. Anne's Asylum. The institution was situated on a remote hill, far from prying eyes and the curious glances of the outside world. It had always been a place shrouded in mystery, a place where the desperate and the disturbed sought refuge from a society that had cast them aside. I had been assigned to work as a nurse at St. Anne's, eager to start my new job and make a difference in the lives of those who needed it most. Little did I know the horrors that awaited me within those walls, horrors far more sinister than any of the stories I had heard. As I walked through the grand entrance, I was greeted by the imposing figure of Dr. Victor Blackwood, the asylum's director. He was a tall man with sharp features and piercing eyes, a man who exuded an air of authority and control. He welcomed me with a firm handshake and a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. The initial days at St. Anne's passed without incident. I went about my duties, tending to the patients, administering medication, and trying to bring a glimmer of hope to their troubled lives. But as the weeks turned into months, I began to notice peculiarities, subtle signs that all was not as it seemed. Patients disappeared without explanation, their beds left empty, their files mysteriously removed from the records. When I inquired about their whereabouts, I was met with evasive answers from the staff and a stern warning from Dr. Blackwood to focus on my own responsibilities. Late one night, as I made my rounds through the dimly lit corridors, I heard faint whispers coming from one of the locked rooms. Curiosity got the better of me, and I approached the door cautiously, pressing my ear to the cold wooden surface. The whispers grew louder, and I could make out hushed voices, the words filled with desperation and despair. It was clear that the patients in that room were not receiving the care they deserved. I made a mental note to investigate further, determined to uncover the truth. As I delved deeper into my investigation, I discovered a hidden basement beneath the asylum, a place that had been deliberately concealed from the staff. The narrow staircase led me into a labyrinthine network of underground chambers, each one more disturbing than the last. In these hidden chambers, patients were subjected to cruel experiments and treatments that defied all ethical boundaries. Their screams echoed through the cold, damp corridors, their pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The patients, some of whom I had come to know and care for, were being subjected to unspeakable horrors. I knew I had to act, to expose the atrocities that were taking place beneath the asylum's facade. I began to document everything I saw, taking photographs and recording audio of the patients' cries. I also started secretly communicating with a journalist I trusted, hoping to bring the truth to light. But as I continued my investigations, the darkness of St. Anne's began to close in on me. I became aware of a group of staff members who were complicit in the sinister activities of the asylum. They seemed to move with a quiet, malevolent purpose, always watching, always listening. One night, as I was on my way to deliver my evidence to the journalist, I was ambushed by two of these conspirators. They dragged me into a dimly lit room and demanded to know what I had discovered. Fear gnawed at me as I realized the extent of their power within the asylum. I refused to divulge my findings, but they were relentless in their pursuit of information. They threatened me, tortured me, and left me battered and broken. It was clear that they would stop at nothing to protect the asylum's dark secret. As I lay in that cold, dimly lit room, I knew I had to escape. With every ounce of strength left in me, I managed to free myself and make my way to the journalist's contact. I handed over my evidence, praying that it would be enough to expose the horrors of St. Anne's. Days turned into weeks as I hid in fear, waiting for the journalist to act on the information I had provided. Finally, a story broke in the news, revealing the atrocities that had taken place within the asylum's walls. The public was horrified, and the authorities descended on St. Anne's, determined to bring those responsible to justice. Dr. Victor Blackwood and his co-conspirators were arrested, and the asylum was shut down, its patients transferred to more humane facilities. But the nightmares of St. Anne's would haunt me forever. The faces of the tortured patients, the whispers in the darkness, and the malevolent staff members would be etched in my memory, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most seemingly benign institutions. Thanks for watching. To support us, please like and subscribe.